In this video, we're going to look at some data displays. Specifically, we're going to be working on stem and leaf plot and histogram, because those are what we worked on creating in this chapter. So I have a list of data here. It's the same as the list that's on your paper. And we need to create first a stem and leaf plot and second a histogram. When you're making your stem and leaf plot, remember that your stem represents the numbers in the tens places, and your leaf represents the numbers in the ones places. Your stem and your leaves do have to go in order. That's the most important thing that you need to remember. So when I look at it, my lowest tens values that I see are in the 20s. So I'm going to start with 2. And my highest tens values that I see are in the 70s. So I'm going to go all the way up to 7. Okay. Remember, I said just find things in order. So looking for the smallest number, I see a 21. So I'm going to put a 21. Another number in the 20s I see is the 24. I also see a 28. And that looks like it's it for my 20s. My 30s, I don't actually see any 30s at all. And so it's okay to leave one of the leaves part blank. So my 30 is not going to have any leaves to it. But I do see a couple 40s. I see a 43 and I see a 48. So that covers that. In my 50s, I only see one. I see a 52. In my 60s, I see 3. 61 comes first. And then there's 2 69s. When there's 2 of a number, you do have to include it both times. It's really important that you include it however many times it shows up. And then last but not least, I have 2 71s and a 77. So 71, 71, and 77. And that looks like all my data. So there is my stem and leaf plot. And I like doing a stem and leaf plot before I do the histogram because it gives me an idea of what should go into my bins. So just as a reminder, your bins are going to go on the horizontal axis right here. And they're called bins because you can fit multiple numbers inside of one bin. If we were doing a dot plot, we would have to list every single number starting at 21 and ending at 77. But because we're doing a histogram, we can kind of fit things into bigger bins. Something that is important, though, is that you can't just skip to wherever it is that you want to start. You do have to stay in order. If you start with 10, you have to go to 20, 30. Wow, this is really hard to write small on here. Something to learn. 50, 60, 70, and in this case, I do need to go all the way to 80. I'm going to show you exactly why when I'm making this. Let's fix that 30. Oh, that looks a little better. The numbers on the vertical axis are going to be your frequency or how often something shows up. I think my vertical axis is a little long for this problem, but that's okay. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't think I'll need any higher than that. It is always a good idea to label frequency. We don't really have any information about what these numbers are here. They're just a set of numbers, so we can't really provide a label for that. So now you go and you check how many numbers are between 0 and 10. And if I check, I don't have any between 0 and 10. I don't even have any between 10 and 20, but I do count 3 numbers in the 20s. I count a 21, 24, and 28. And so I know that in the bin from 20 to 30, I'm going to need to make the frequency on that 3. From 30 to 40, there were 0, so I don't even need to include a bar from 30 to 40. From 40 to 50, oh, I don't know why I put a 0. From 40 to 50, I count 2 numbers. So we're going to have a frequency of 2. 50 to 60, there's 1 number. So we're going to have a frequency of 1. 60 to 70, there's 3, and I'll do 2 and 1. 70 to 80 is also 3. So this is really important that it falls between 70 and 80 and not in the 60 range. So from 60 to 70, I'm going to have 3, and then from 70 to 80, I'm going to have 3. So I can go 3 and 3. Okay, so this is our, oh my voice, this is our histogram that we have created from our data. And it's useful because we have these things called bins instead of listing out each and every number and drawing a bar for each and every number. Okay, now on your test, I can ask you to create data if you go from a histogram to a stem and leaf plot. I can ask you to do that. In which case there would be many, many, many possible answers that you could give me. But if this were the case, you would have to come up with, here, you would have to come up with 3 numbers between 20 and 30. So that would attach to my stem too. And maybe I want to choose the numbers 21, 23, and 25. I can do that. There's going to be so many different possible answers. You could do 27, 27, 27, but you would just have to create 3 numbers because the frequency between 20 and 30 was 3. You would have to create 2 numbers between 40 and 50, 1 number between 50 and 60, 3 and 3 between 60 and 70, and 70 and 80. So that is a totally valid question for me to ask you on a test, and it very well might show up. So I hope that this helps you out with histograms. If you need more practice, I recommend just asking somebody in your family to list off a bunch of numbers between 20 and 50 or between 30 and 70, kind of like we did in class, and just use that information to help you practice, make a stem and leaf plot, and a histogram.